As you know, on Sunday night or Monday morning of every week, we post a new expository semiotics explaining why we would choose which lectionary readings. But in these readings, our dream is, and our desire is, to help you read the signs and fondle the details and spot the seminal metaphors, the condensed signs and the stories that are key for preaching to a digital culture. So strap on your seatbelt and join us as we prospect our passages for today.
Welcome to Len Talk. We're approaching almost 200. Can you believe it? 200 Len Talks, and I'm so grateful for your support that keeps me going and keeps these going. So please, if you're hearing this, watching this, don't forget to click the subscribe button. And donations to PreachTheStory are what keep these series going. I've got something really unusual for you today. This is the 8th of October. The lectionary reading that I want to focus on is the one from Exodus 20. Now, Exodus 19 and 20 are basically the same story. And this is the story of Mount Sinai and the giving of the Ten Commandments to Moses. And I was asked recently to, one of my doctoral students has just written a book called God's Match, How to Light a Fire in Your Church, based on her dissertation. And she asked me to write a foreword, which I try and do when my doctoral students take their dissertation or write another book. And I was thinking about fire and the metaphor of fire, and suddenly it hit me that this is the first Pentecost. And we have two Pentecosts in the Bible. And this one on Mount Sinai is the first one. Exodus 19 and 20. Acts 2 is the second one on Mount Zion. And in thinking about it and kind of working on this forward, I came up with some comparisons about how these two Pentecosts are similar. And so let me dedicate this vlog to the two Pentecosts in the Bible. Both are theophanies, manifestations of God's presence in a unique way. One is at Mount Sinai, where God gave the Torah. One is at Mount Zion, where God gave the Spirit. One took place on the 50th day after a major event, the Exodus. One took place on the 50th day after a major event, Jesus' resurrection, his exit from the tomb. One is where God wrote on tablets of stone. One is where God wrote on hearts of flesh. One is where God had loud sounds from heaven that came in thunder and lightning. And one is where God had loud sounds from heaven that came in a rushing mighty wind. One led to a covenant between God and God's people Israel. One led to a new covenant in Jesus' blood between God and all people, all cultures, all groups around the world. At the first Pentecost, there is a birthday. The nation of Israel was born. At the second Pentecost, there is a birthday. The church, the bride of Christ, is born. At the first Pentecost, there was the thunder of tongues. In fact, the Hebrew word, which we translate as thunder, literally means voices or languages. At the second Pentecost, there was the thunder of tongues as people spoke in all the languages. At the first Pentecost, about 3,000 Israelites were smitten when Moses found the people worshiping the golden calf, smitten in sin. At the second Pentecost, about 3,000 converts were smitten by the Spirit and added to the early church as a result of Peter's preaching. At the first Pentecost, God sent the teaching. You know, Torah means teaching. At the second Pentecost, God sent the teacher. Here is, but the advocate, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and remind you of everything I have said to you. At the first Pentecost, God spoke to and through God's people in 10 commandments. At the second Pentecost, God spoke to and through God's people, speaking in languages and tongues. At the first Pentecost, a new order and community structure was established, the Levitical priesthood. At the second Pentecost, a new order and community structure was established, the apostles leading the church, specifically the Jerusalem church. The same day Jews celebrated God's gift of a living Torah, the Holy Spirit came to raise to life God's gift of live Torah, Jesus the Christ, who is embodied Torah, an embedded temple. Moses recounted the first Pentecost experience for the people in this way. This is Deuteronomy 4, 11, and 12. You came near and stood at the foot of the mountain, while flames from the mountain shot into the sky. The mountain was shrouded in black clouds and deep darkness, and the Lord spoke to you from the heart of the fire. At the Exodus 19 and 20 Pentecost, God's presence was manifested in fire, with the flame shooting into the sky. At the Acts 2 Pentecost, God's presence was manifested in fire, but with the flames landing on the disciples' head. At the first Pentecost, God gave guidance for living through the 10 Commandments. At the second Pentecost, God gave guidance for living through the Holy Spirit. At the first Pentecost, God gave God's people a person and a law to follow, Prophet Moses and the 10 Commandments. At the second Pentecost, God gave God's people a person who fulfilled the law to follow, Jesus the Messiah, who was brought back to life, to live his resurrection life in us by the power of the Holy Spirit. Meister Eckhart, this 13th century mystic who is only now really coming into his own as a prophet and a theologian, had this to say: the wood does not change the fire into itself, but the fire changes the wood into itself. So are we changed into the likeness of God, that we shall know God as God is. My prayer for you this day is that you, by the power of the Holy Spirit, may live these 2 Pentecosts in your own life, and that the fire may so inflame you that we who have been touched from on high by the fires of the Almighty will be fired up for Jesus and the gospel. God's fire. John Wesley said that when asked why people came to hear him preach, he said, really, I don't know. All I can figure is that the Spirit sets me on fire and people come to watch me burn. May you burn with the fire of God's love and presence, forgiveness, passion, for this world. I pray for you a Pentecost of fire.